Welcome, everyone. Our topic of today is meeting the hunger crisis together. And I want to welcome both Kathy and Craig, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves in a second. But there is a rising demand and shrinking resources in America right now, with people needing assistance with food. But we can do this with compassion.
Mm.
And I'm very excited and honored to have both Craig and Kathy here today to give us their perspectives on what is the current situation. If you or someone you know needs assistance, how to get
Mhm.
that in a safe way, and if you want to be part of the solution, what can you do? 13.5% of all households experience food insecurities. That's a 2023 economic research. In Delaware alone, and Kathy, you might know this, in 2023, there was 134,000 people who faced hunger, including almost 38,000 children. And we know that this is just increasing. So, Craig and Kathy, thank you for both being here. And first and foremost, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourself. I'm going to start with Kathy because she's on my left. And just Kathy, if you could introduce yourself and your food bank and why
Mhm.
you're here.
Absolutely. So, my name is Cathy Kanefsky. I have the honor of serving as the president and CEO of the Food Bank of Delaware. I like to say I wear a lot of hats. Two of them are the most important ones. As a mom, I'm the mom of two twin sons who are 34 years old, who both have autism, and then another child who is just 2 years younger than them and perfectly healthy. But they kind of have shaped my life and my career. I've been a nonprofit, since I went back to work after the twins were born, and I've never not been. But in all of my work, I've been very, very closely aligned with mission through my personal experience. And I didn't think that would be the case necessarily with the food bank until I realized it absolutely is. The food bank and fighting food insecurity and helping people is truly just helping somebody today that didn't know what today was going to be. For some reason, their life turned upside down and they need us, and we're here for them. And I love the fact that you said, we need to do this respectfully. We need
That's
to
right.
do it with dignity. We need to help people that need to be helped, and we need to make them feel like they can admit that they need help. I think that's one of the biggest things we struggle with is people. Their pride needs to be checked at the curb because we're here for you.
That's right.
Yes. Thank you.
Hmm.
Craig, how about let me hear a little bit about you?
Yeah, so I came at this work a little bit differently than most people in the nonprofit space. I actually served in elected office for 16 years, both at the state house level and then at the county council level. All of my work was primarily dealing with education, and what I saw was that so many children in our community continue to struggle when it comes to making ends meet, especially when it comes to food access. Unfortunately, one of the uh, really unknowns about Montgomery County is that we have a very high food insecurity rate. It's 34%, which is staggering when you look at the population of Montgomery County, which is 1.1 million people. And so many of those children continue to go to school each and every day hungry and are looking for that one meal that they're able to rely upon consistently is coming from schools. And so we at Manna are not just a food bank who has distributions at multiple sites where people can make appointments. We also have mobile pantries. We have pantries that are hardened pantries that are located in institutions of education, whether they be in schools as well as institutes of higher learning. Montgomery College and universities at Shady Grove are two of the ones that are some of our largest. But at the end of the day, what we pride ourselves most on is what you talked about, Marla, and you, Kathy, talked about as well, is that when people are asking for assistance, there is the dignity of choice. And there is the dignity of being able to, just because they might need some assistance, doesn't mean that they just have to accept what we give them. We deserve to be able to give them just as they would that same shopping experience as if they were going into a grocery store. And that's where we're really trying to migrate all of our services towards. And so Manna's in a period of evolution right now. We're not as big as the Food Bank of Delaware, but we are trying to meet the need. We are the largest food bank in Montgomery County and one of the largest in the DMV region. And the reason why we're growing is because, unfortunately, as you stated, Marla, at the very beginning, the need just continues to exponentially grow. That's the staggering part about all of this work, is that while we are doing good work and doing great things, the unfortunate part is that that need is going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Um, Craig, you mentioned something when we chatted last week that SNAP um, is not only going away, but it's going away sooner. Could you mention that real quick?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's been guidance that's been given now. We originally anticipated that some of the SNAP guidance, when it came to states paying their share, would actually happen in January of next year. We've now been apprised that that's actually going to happen in November, and they've started asking states at this point. Kathy knows all too well as Food Bank of Delaware about this because it caught all of us off guard. While again, it's still daunting for us to try and prepare 3 months out. You can only imagine when you're providing food like Kathy is for an entire state, that when you're looking at a 1 month ramp, it makes it nearly impossible. And then couple that with the fact that we just don't have the monetary resources to truly provide for the amount of people that we're going to see. And so this has unfortunately become a perfect storm. You've got the economy that's out of control in terms of grocery prices and expenses all across the board for so many, and couple that with taking away of benefits that we know are so important to families, and it truly makes it an untenable situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kathy, I hear you nodding. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Um, absolutely. And as I'm was hearing you talk, Craig, I've said before, I've used two words more this year than I think I ever have in my whole life. One of them is unprecedented, and the other is
Mhm.
uncertainty. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a perfect example of even when we try to plan, when those curveballs come at us, and we're already trying to plan against an unprecedented time. So, you both have said it. The need is rising. We distributed more meals last year than ever in our 44-year-old history, and that's just you got out of, I don't know, did we ever get out of COVID? But coming out of the pandemic, I think every one of us in this space thought we were going to see a bit of a decline in the need, and it never declined, and now it's just steadily going back up, and it's tough, But I think one of the things that I pride ourselves, our food bank on is that, and you both have said this too. We like to talk about our work in two big buckets: food for today and food for tomorrow. So we're worrying about getting food on tables, in backpacks, in trunks of cars, however we're getting food to someone. That's a big part of what we do. But the other, almost equally staffed, I don't want to say important, for sure they're both important, but we have as much of our efforts going to helping people hopefully not need the food bank by providing training. We do workforce development, we provide nutrition training, we do financial coaching, and all the different ways that we can help someone. And sometimes that feels to some people like it's only one person at a time that you're helping, but you're helping one person at a time help their family to really get to a different place. And I think it's all equally important.
Mm. Yeah. What are some of the cascading effects when a family is facing food insecurity? Because it's not just the hunger, which is bad enough, right? But just give us some understanding of what how does that affect other things?
I was at an end gun violence conference a few weeks ago, and it was such an interesting perspective to weave all of the challenges that a family faces, that just kind of dot the lines to where that ends up being possibly, a member of the family taking a gun and doing something horrific with it, whether it's going and shooting or whether it's suicide. And there was a little bit of, not that I didn't think about that before, but I think when you're talking about a child going to school hungry and not being able to learn, that sets that child up for a life that is not, most likely not going to be the productive life that we all hope for when we find out that we're expecting a baby.
Yeah, and l- let me just say this. Look, it's a toll on families when they're fighting food insecurity, but it's an indicator. We call it the canary in the coal mine of so
Mhm.
much more that's affecting these families. I was at a conference and a woman was speaking and talking about her own personal lived experience and talking about the mental health stressors as a child,
Mhm.
not as the mom, as a child that she experienced. She explained how her mother had four different piles of cash that she would keep. And one of those piles would be for rent. The other pile was for utilities. The third pile was for food. And the fourth pile was for if they ever got a chance to get that pile up enough to get a new pair of shoes or
Mhm.
a clothing item, or maybe even have a treat of going out somewhere to something. That was that fourth pile. And they kids would always know and be looking at that pile to see if one of those piles at the end would get big enough so that they could look forward to something. But they continued to see their mom sitting at that table talking to herself as she moved money from pile to pile. And she said, cash is the currency of urgency.
Mhm.
And it's something that's stuck with me because it truly is something that's indicative of what it is that we've talked about for a long time, but we've never talked about it in that space. We've talked about it in terms of people not trusting banks, easier for them to get to, but really it is to where that cash is felt as a necessity to be able to help them to manage how it is that they see they're going to be able to make ends meet for their family. And so all of the things are impacted, Marla. Every single thing when it comes to every single day and every decision that's made, they're all impacted by the situation that this family is in. And so whether it's a single person who's struggling to make ends meet, whether it's a senior who's trying to balance between their social security checks paying for prescription drugs and also to put food on the table, whether it's a family of four where mom and dad are both working and mom has lost their job because USAID shut down and she actually worked in the building as a cleaner, so to no
Mm,
fault of her own, she now
Right.
doesn't have a job and doesn't have health care because she was the breadwinner for the family who actually provided the full time, and her husband who works gig work as a landscaper and as a person who does contracting jobs from time to time.
Yeah.
Those are all real stories. Those are real
yeah.
people who we serve. And so it is important for us to remember that at the end of the day, the face of hunger and who it is that we serve is not who you see in a commercial. It is the
Yeah.
people who you see each and every day who are working right alongside you, who you oftentimes don't really pay attention to. It is the true hidden face of hunger, and those people are truly struggling right now and trying to make ends meet, trying to make that cash go a little bit farther in a time in which it truly is working against them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
spoke with
It,
someone this morning, and a friend of mine who is works for the federal government and has been furloughed. She said she spent all day Monday crying because she was letting go the rest of her team, and her husband had lost his university job. And so you know, it's just the people that are being affected right now are startling some others, because I think some people have a narrative of who this is
mm,
that comes to a food bank, and right now that narrative is blown up. And I hope that what we can do, Craig and myself and our teams and food banks across the country, is make it very known that you bring your government ID to the food bank and we're going to help you, right? But again, I think it's not ingrained, and I think folks that I think we have two camps of people that have needed help for a long time. Those that have needed help for a long time and have known how to get it and are comfortable continuing to get it, and people that have needed help for a long time that are too embarrassed and there's a stigma there. And now we're adding another third pot to that group, at least a third pot.
That's right.
There's so many things I want to go here, but I do think it might be a wise thing of, if people feel like they need assistance right now, and I know that's rising, and I had someone emailed me yesterday and said, yeah, they have a group, they meet at a food bank, and they're just shocked with how many more people they're seeing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just in one place, around. If people need it, either they've needed it for a long time or they're seeing themselves in a situation. I think first start maybe with, what to tell them from an emotional, intellectual point of view, in just light of that it's okay. And then maybe let's get into some of the practical tips of how to do it right. I don't know if there's a right way to do it, but I'd love to hear that. So maybe a little few words of maybe encouragement of who should come and who shouldn't. That type of idea.
Kathy?
Anybody that needs us should. I have a hard time saying somebody shouldn't. The only person that shouldn't is the person that we might be coming to you for a generous donation because you have the capacity to help in a different way. But I actually I spoke to our workforce development classes the other day, and I said, it strikes me odd that nobody comes to a food bank because that was part of their plan, including me as the CEO of the food bank. That was, if you had asked me, 5 years ago, well, 5 years ago, maybe I would have, because I was in the interview process. 10 years ago, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. And I think you can say the same thing about somebody coming for food or the folks that are sitting in those classrooms, because that's not your traditional education. Nobody thought they were going to learn how to be a warehouse worker at a food bank. And I think it's enlightening for someone that is trying to figure out if it's okay for them to go. It absolutely is, because none of us have come here because that was part of the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me say two things. One, people who need us know in their heart that they need us. I
Mm-hmm.
remember during COVID, a woman pulled up. She was in a white C-Class Mercedes, and she already felt, as she was pulling up into this drive-through line to ask for food, she already felt awkward. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, I just want to let you know that I lost my job. I was a paralegal. I don't know where to turn. Someone said that I should come to you guys to get food. I have a daughter. I'm a single mom. And she's going through all of this explanation. She's like, I'll fill out whatever forms you need me to fill out. But, I just need help. And I said, ma'am, you're in the right place
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay. And that's the first thing, right? Um, as you talk about the title of what it is that we do, compassion, I want to break down that word because it
Mm-hmm.
means a lot. Compassion is more than just empathy. Compassion is seeing a person, an elderly lady who's tripped as she's trying to walk up a set of stairs, and you're like, oh my gosh, ma'am, are you okay? That's empathy. That's the feeling of empathy. Compassion is helping that woman to her feet and saying, ma'am, where are you headed to? Can I escort you there and get you there safely? That's compassion. And I think we oftentimes interchange the words mistakenly. And compassion is what we as food banks do in helping people through that journey. It truly
Mm-hmm.
is walking them through to that place, as Kathy was highlighting, where hopefully they achieve self sufficiency that they no longer need our services. So we lead all of us with compassion. Our door
Mm-hmm.
is open to whoever may have slipped and fallen, whoever may just need a little hand up to be able to help them to get stable, so that they can then go on that pathway of self-sufficiency. That is really how I look at the work that we do and who it is that we serve, because anybody can fall. There isn't a single person who can't trip and fall. In all of the challenges that we all face in lives, whether it's dealing with healthcare illness, whether it's dealing with a car accident, whether it's dealing with a house incident, there are all kinds of things that impact us that create destabilization for us financially. And that's all it takes.
Yeah.
Of course, we know the tragic, the loss of a job, but there are so many other things that destabilize families as well. As we talk about how financially, so many folks in the United States of America don't have enough money to survive one of those financial instabilities in their savings accounts. And so, just as Cathy said, look, I fear it's going to get worse. We had, I'll just close with this one last piece. We had two uniformed armed forces members come to our food pantry on Friday. And they said they were sent by their CO, and they were fanning out to all the different places to make sure that they understood where resources were in case the troops needed it. That's where we are.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's where we are, right? And it's one of those things where, again, like I said, there is no face of who it is that we serve. We serve anyone who needs our assistance.
Yeah. And there's something I think that's a really important bedrock is when we have compassion and when, as a society, we're caring for one another, the entirety of the society can be raised up. It's not that if I hand this down, then it's not being pulled down by someone who needs a hand up, right? It's our humanity allows us to be better when we're serving one another. I was meeting with someone yesterday. He runs a homeless shelter in Oklahoma, and the statistic was in the 40s in Paris, a priest started working with the homeless and having the homeless help other homeless people, to the point where there was no homeless left. And when there was no homelessness left, that actually was the problem, because then they didn't have anybody else to help. And it brought it back. So it's that same concept, I think, that going to get help actually is giving someone else an opportunity to love on you. And I see that. So it's not just a hand down. You're actually, even those that want help and need help right now, can really help society have greater compassion and strength. So I don't know. That's my thought on that. Because there really isn't shame in it, right? There is compassion.
No. I have a volunteer that greets every single person that comes to it. We have two on-site healthy pantries at our main two buildings, and then we partner with over 200 partner agencies throughout the state. But she works at one of our pantries, and she always, the first thing out of her mouth was, "Thank you for coming. Welcome. Thank you for coming." And she does that with such purpose and such, she's saying that because she means it, because she realizes often what it takes for somebody just to get out of the car and come in.
I love that. So from a practical standpoint, if someone's feeling like they need some assistance right now, like Cathy, you I think slightly mentioned bring your ID. Craig, you mentioned when we were talking before about how to stay safe. What if there might be officers that want to arrest you? I hate to say that, but that unfortunately right now could be the case. So from a practical standpoint of people who don't know the system, what should we do?
And I clarify that ID because we do not ask for ID typically. That was for federal workers. Okay. Where I'm just looking for a federal ID to have some, if they're furloughed and they're having a hard time, that's a kind of a different bucket of people. We ask for proof of residence, right, because USDA is, a huge part of how we are able to provide our food, and you need to just show that you're within the state. So we do ask for that. And then when someone sits down after our wonderful volunteer thanks them for coming, then we sit down and we ask some questions and we ask them to self-identify. Do you fall into this bracket of need? And we don't ask them to prove that. We don't ask them to show their bank account. We ask, honor system. And then we also ask what other kind of help do you need? Do you need help with budgeting? Do you need help with benefits? Do you need help with, on down the line? Lots of folks that come to our pantry end up going through our culinary training or our warehouse and logistics training. So we try to make sure that and we're also connecting with other things that housing. We don't provide housing services, but we know the folks in the state that we can then say, you need help in that area, and we make those connections. And then we pair them with a volunteer and walk through the aisles of the Healthy Pantry Center with their shopping cart, where they know they get to pick what they want and what they think they would like to eat and what they know their family would like to eat, and not what we think they need just because they're hungry.
Yeah,
so that's us.
And
Great.
and let me just say that to start, Feeding America is a great website that links up with all of us that are the myriad of tens of thousands of food banks, food centers across this nation that are doing exactly what Cathy just described. They're all there with open arms, ready to assist. And so folks can actually just punch in their address, and Feeding America will identify the closest sites to them. I suggest that people reach out, especially if you need emergency food. And so that's one of the things to where we are as a food center on an appointment-based system. So we have appointments for folks that set a time slot for them during a particular day in which they can pick up food. But if a person is experiencing severe food insecurity and needs something right away, we also do have emergency assistance, and many food banks and food centers across this nation do that as well. So I just want to make sure that for anybody who's watching or anybody who knows someone who might need assistance, do that first. Reach out to your food banks, ask them what their how they distribute their food, how they might be able to help you. Explain your situation and be as honest and as open as possible, because some food banks and food centers adjust based on family size. Some of them based on circumstance do track income, and that income has an impact in terms of the type of food or the frequency of the food you might get as well. We're all a little bit different there. So working with your local provider, your food assistance provider, is going to be incredibly important, and give them as much information as you feel comfortable with giving them, because your privacy is foremost for us, but it does help us to serve you better the more we know
Absolutely.
about you.
Can I add just amen and absolutely, Craig? The other thing that I don't think people understand is the type of funding that we get to be able to provide the food that we provide sometimes needs some of that data. So there's a separate source of funding for families with children. Well, unless we know how many children you have, it's kind of hard. And I get it too. And we're so trying to keep everybody, their privacy as much as we can. But there's some things that we might ask, but there's a reason. We're not asking just so we know, because honestly, if we didn't need to know that, then we wouldn't be asking.
Yeah. Is there anything else before we shift to, maybe how people can contribute, how people can get involved to be part of the solution? But don't want to pass over this if there's some other things that feel important.
I would just add one thing, and it's not anything new, but it's Craig, you kind of hit on it as well. And I find myself hearing somebody say something that really resonates, and then I just steal it and use it as my own over and over again. So I was not the first person to say this, but one of my board members he has spent 5 years incarcerated. And he has lived a life of food insecurity, and he is now fantastically wonderful and successful and has a very different life. But he talks about his childhood, and he said one day, he said, "Look, children should go to school to learn, not to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one powerful sentence. And he uses that in different audiences, and he uses it always with the same punch, because that to me says it in a nutshell, because too many children don't eat if they're not in school. And that's something we need to change.
Wow, that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful, and so true, huh? We, we spend a lot on the penalty system. If we
Mm-hmm.
spent a little bit more on the other side of it, I don't
Yeah.
think we'd have to have as much of the penalty system going. So, uh, yeah, the violence and you know, just even think about yourself, like each individual, like when do I feel threatened and how do I respond? Like what happens? I was on the phone yesterday with someone and I could tell my voice was getting higher and
Mm-hmm.
sharper. And I'm like, I am in a safe environment. I have a full stomach. I have a well, I don't have a full tank of gas, but I can get gas, right? Um and those things push up against us. But then you add hunger and not knowing, n- not knowing where to buy stuff and having a car that is broken down, and you add and add and add, and of course we're going to act out of our sometimes our worst instead of our best.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we make it to where kids can learn and kids can feel safe, and parents even can even learn how to parent in a way that just really nurtures, and that they feel supported in that.
Yeah.
So
You know,
uh
can I just jump in on one piece? Because I think it's incredibly important for us to understand. Look, housing, clothing, food, all of those things are important, right? We know this. Um, One of the things I want to double down on when it comes to food is that we have a term in the dictionary. Webster put it in a couple years back, hangry.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
mm,
and I want to highlight that because I think it's really important. It's really important because it does speak to the mental health and well-being of the families that we serve. And by families, I mean, again, the individual, that senior, that child who goes to school hungry, who's not happy about it, whose belly is growling, and then the teacher's calling on them and saying, "Hey, Johnny, answer the question." And Johnny's thinking about, "I can't wait for lunch because I haven't eaten since lunch yesterday." And that's all that's on Johnny's mind. How do you expect Johnny to perform? Right? How do you expect Johnny to operate at his highest levels, right? And Marla, you sparked it when you were talking about having a full belly and what that feels like. It feels different. You feel more confident. You feel more comfortable. You feel centered. You feel rested. You feel relaxed. You feel warm. All of those things folks associate with food.
Right.
In fact, so much so that we use food as a method of comforting in times of grief, in times of sorrow, in
Mm-hmm.
times of challenge, in times of joy. It's all a part of what it is that we do, that it's food. And so to deny that to individuals is to deny all of those experiences that we couple
mm,
that go along with food. It is just a very interesting thing, right? We even equate, for those, and doctors talk about this, and we talk about the endorphins that rise, for those who may be struggling with weight, because food engenders that positivity in terms of that, feeling about, yes, I've got this food, I feel satisfied, and it's interesting because I always wonder, have we done the studies in terms of the opposite?
mm.
Have we looked at how it is that the brain reacts when the body is starved of nutrients?
Mm-hmm.
And all we have to do is just sit and think about it for a moment. I'm a big fan of some of these reality shows, and I watch the ones like Naked and Afraid, to where the people are foraging in the forest for 14 days, and oftentimes they lose 15 pounds. And as they're going through these trials and tribulations, and I equate not what some of our families experience to what some of these folks are doing in some of the most crazy situations, the reality is that their symptoms and how they feel are similar. Feeling of lightheadedness, feeling of nauseousness, feeling of not being able to focus, um, all tired, right? So when a child is falling asleep, it could be for a myriad of reasons. Yes, it could be the fact that they stayed up and were playing Roblox or Fortnite or whatever the game is now, but it could also be that the child is just hungry and the body is shutting down because that child is hungry. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are happening all around us each and every day. And unless we open our minds to thinking about a different context than the one that we're told, that a child who's not paying attention and listening in class, the coworker who you have who always seems to have an attitude. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'd have an attitude too if I went to work every single day and still didn't know where my next meal was coming from. I'd have an attitude too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be necessarily the best employee. I wouldn't be the best coworker who wants to talk about what my plans are for the weekend. And so now I get castigated off as like this antisocial, bad employee, when in reality, I was just hungry.
Mm-hmm. And the stress that that causes. Craig, as you were talking, I work a lot internationally, and I work mostly with men in the roles I do, so I always make sure that I always try to get together with the wives as an honor. And my first question I always ask is, "What is your favorite food to make?" Because food and I mean, they're so proud of it, and the culture, and so like you've mentioned so many pieces of it, right? The physical, the stress, and that relational piece too, that we gather for food around the table, especially during celebrations. And I guarantee you, every woman I've asked that question to lights up and usually gives me the full scenario of how to do it, because it's such, like you said, food is more than just the survival piece. It really is integrated into us being human, and us being relational, and us being in community, and us being family. And to strip not only the essentials away of the physical, but also that emotional and mental and relational piece too. So yeah, really appreciate
One
that.
of my sons had a brainstem stroke 7 years ago and spent 7 weeks in the combination of the hospital and then rehab. And I had a boss that modeled how to be a leader, and I hope I do him proud and the way he handled that situation for me and with me. And I stayed with Sam in the hospital. I think I went home 3 nights, and my husband spelled me, and I went home. Um, Sam had a feeding tube because he wasn't able to swallow without choking and going into his lungs. And so he had a feeding tube that came out, thankfully, eventually. But he watched the cooking channel, the whole time he was in the hospital. And I remember saying to him, "What are you doing? What are you doing to yourself?" Because he loves to eat and he couldn't eat. And he would hear and he would just say, "But I really like that show." But he has autism. He processes things different, and I truly believe that all helped fuel his
Mm-hmm.
fight to get back and eventually someday lose that feeding tube. And every September 30th, we have to buy him a Hungry Man meal because that was one of the commercials that he watched all the time on repeat. But I don't know that I ever put those two things together, but food, food helped him heal in a way
Right.
that I don't think we anticipated.
Yeah.
And now he works at the kitchen at the food bank.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, let's transition to how can we be part of the solution. And that's going to be different for everyone. You guys do it as your full-time job. I'm at least getting the word out, but
Mhm.
it's there's always that, well, what do you do? What can I do? I really would like to see empowerment. You know, we've talked about the need and the changes, and that it's probably most likely going to get worse before it gets better. And I don't want people to give up hope. I don't want people to say, well, there's nothing I can do, or, this world's just going to pot. It's like, when it's hard is when we show up our best, can be
Mhm.
show up as our best.
That's
And
right.
so, I've heard the word volunteer. So maybe let's start with that aspect of, what does volunteering for a food bank? I think of always serving food. That's my layman's term
Mhm.
of it. So I'd love to hear some of the ideas. Craig, one I'm going to steal from you, because you talked about it, is if you're an artist, paint a picture and sell it and have
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Or maybe go into these food banks and make some color, or make them look beautiful. I'm sure aesthetics, but I stole that one from you, of selling a picture if you're an artist. So, um, Craig, let's start with you. What are some ways of that you see that volunteers can help?
So my folks always know that I always lead with this, and it's the three T's: time, talent, and treasure.
Mhm.
And so I'll start with time, because volunteerism is a key part of what we do. There isn't a single food bank, food center in this nation that doesn't have a robust volunteer program, everything from boxing to managing shelves to guiding folks through to greeting
Mhm.
folks when they come in the door. All of that is immeasurable in terms of financial support for the organization, because we could not afford to hire the number of employees that we need to operate. And that's why our volunteer program is so, so important. So, time, incredibly important. Talent, as you touched on, everything from whether you're a person who's a pickleballer and you love pickleball. And so you could set up a pickleball tournament and raise awareness for the organization, right? It's your talent. You're skilled at pickleball, and you can bring other people to the table to
Hmm.
learn about what it is that we do as food assistance providers, and then also help to raise funds. And of course, look, when it comes to treasure, there's no question that folks being able to donate and give to the organization is incredibly important. I always just want to reinforce to folks that there are a myriad of ways to do that. Everything that we've now been talking about in terms of donor advised funds, to leaving bequests to
Mhm.
organizations upon your passing. So writing your favorite food assistance provider into your will. All those kinds of things will certainly help us beyond the simple, here's a check for $25. They all make a difference. And I will tell you now, whether it's the volunteer hours, whether it's the painting that was done or the pickleball tournament that was scheduled, whether it's the $25 deducted from your bi-weekly paycheck that goes straight to the organization, they all help us. There is no minimum. There is no that's not enough. There is no that doesn't impact. And it all is under the umbrella of advocacy. You
Hmm.
are advocating to end hunger. And so that power in your voice, whether that voice is through your time, whether that voice is through expressing and lending your talents, whether it's through giving of your treasure, all of those things help to advocate for raising awareness around why people should not be experiencing hunger in the wealthiest nation in the world. And we also have the resources, the three T's, to be able to make a difference and put a stamp out on hunger once and for all, if we all engage under that advocacy arm.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kathy, do you have, you mentioned even the volunteer that greets people, to let them know that they truly are welcome.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah. I think there are so many ways, and I think you said, if somebody doesn't think what they can do is enough, or you made some kind of a comment like that. We have, and I wish I had the number in front of me, but we have a growing number of what we call recurring donors. So if someone, doesn't think they have enough to write a check for $1,000 or, $1 million, because we've got people that can do both of them. And if you can, please do. But if you can't, and you have young children and you are in a position where you are able to do a little bit, I think it's a huge learning opportunity for your child if you take them with you when you go to the supermarket and you do your food shopping, to let them pick out one or two or three things from the list that's on the website of your food bank of the most needed items. And I think that's a learning too, because it's not just grabbing something out of your pantry that's about to expire and taking it to the food bank. It's really truly about trying to figure out what it is that's going to be most needed and educate your child and do that. But then to also educate your child that, honestly, I think that the days of a $25 pizza night are behind us. Anybody that orders pizza every Friday night, like my family does, because that's what we do, should take that dollar amount and make that their donation monthly and skip one night of pizza. And I think those things will matter, but I think they will have a lasting effect on helping kids grow up to understand. And you hear that all the time. I'm doing this because my mom instilled in me, or my dad instilled in me. He worked at a food bank. My mom did this. And I think we have the opportunity to make those lasting effects with our own families.
Yeah. Yeah, Kathy, I really like that. I've been in the nonprofit world for 36 years, and one way I loved to help families was to invest in their kids. And, some families were like, sit down with my kids or make sure they read the letter. But that idea that there's a little bit of sacrifice or purposefulness
Mm-hmm.
to say, instead of going to, yeah, and, you know, going to a place, getting food, and let's take that money, let's look at, see what it cost. And then next week we'll go to the park and play, and we'll take that money instead of going to the place to eat, we'll still go play. Um, but we're going to give that, and just that tangible, there's nothing better we can give our kids than seeing that we're caring for others and that we can make a difference, even if it's big or little. And
Mm-hmm.
it's that's I love that kind of family, but the purposefulness about it, not just a parent writing a check, and not that's not just right, but they're
Right.
including education and that. So yeah, I really really like that
Sorry.
idea. uh,
My mic goes
hey,
off automatically. It's energy saving.
There you
good
go.
job.
Right.
You're helping
Yeah.
to save the environment, Kathy. We
Yeah.
love you for it.
There you go. The other thing
No.
I would add to that too, if I may, is I think one thing I've brought to this team is, and I've only been here 4.5 years, is not being afraid to bring others into our problem.
Mhm.
So
Mm-hmm.
we don't have it all together. We don't have all the answers. And if we had the answers 5 years ago, Lord knows we don't have the answers today because they're a different set of questions. So
Sure.
letting people into our uncertainty and just admitting, like, gosh, you know what I can say is we'll be here for you. What I can't say is I know exactly how. And so we have gotten, I have a fantastic communications, the vice president of communications, who does an amazing job getting the word out there. And we have people coming to us to help because of
Mm.
that. When the USDA turned away the trucks back in, was that April? We got new people coming in and reaching out and saying, how can I help? And it was because we opened that door and let them come in to help. And I think that's a huge lesson for all of us, is don't act like you have it all together when you don't.
Yeah. So actually, a question I was curious to ask you guys is, what's one of the toughest leadership decisions that you've had to make this year?
Mm.
I can go.
Go ahead.
It's right at the forefront. So unlike Kathy, I mean, I've been in this position for 8 months. And when I first came on board, it was very clear that we had been operating in a deficit for the previous year. And for a nonprofit, that means that you're doing a lot of work, but it also means that it's not sustainable. And
Right.
so the key is for you, and so many people who look at our financials, look at our bottom lines, are looking at stability. They want the organization to continue to be stable so that they can invest, knowing that there's a long-term strategy that you have to be able to ensure that the organization will continue to do its good work as long as it's needed, right? And so at the end of the day, we are and we do hope that one day we won't be needed in the same capacity. And I think that's important because one of the things that you mentioned before, Marla, that is incredibly important is that, when you're thinking about homelessness, there's always going to be a person who may lose their job and be evicted and, become homeless and start experiencing homelessness. Hopefully, the resources are there to then rehouse them quickly, give them the support that's necessary, and get them back on their feet. Same thing applies to food. There will always be a person who's going to experience food insecurity at some point. We hope that it's not at the levels, and it should be something, as Cathy was saying before that I heard, it should not be long standing. It shouldn't be something that goes on for a very long period of time. It should be something that should be temporary. And so for us, one of the challenging parts is reducing the amount of service. And we had to reduce the amount of meals that we were able to being providing for folks until we could shore up our financial resources to be able to be commensurate with the level of service that we were giving. And so that's tough because that there are families out there who need your support, who you're not going to be able to give them to. And one of the toughest things is now that I've been on board and we've actually started to increase our finances and start to increase that number again. So it's like that little parabola, it goes down and then comes back up. Um, but now we have a need that's far exceeding what our
Right.
capacity is now that we've achieved financial stability in just 6 months. So even though it's a great story, the reality is that as an organization, we're still serving less and we've lost ground tremendously because there are so many more people who need our assistance. That is hard. It is hard to wake up every day knowing that you're one of the leading providers in a region and you're not doing enough.
Hmm. Yeah. Well said. Cathy, any thoughts?
I mentioned before I like to steal lines from people, and there are two that I think have become somewhat themes for us this year. And Craig, we went through a very similar. I've only been 4.5 years, so I am longer than you, but we went through a very similar situation last year. Had to let our CFO go, and there was a lot of uncertainty, and we got ourselves to a very healthy space. Thank goodness, because now we're facing what we're facing, right? So we're
Yeah.
Right.
going to be a lot worse. But there are two things. Someone said once upon a time, we get to do this work. I get to do this work. And I think I've instilled that in my leadership to my team that this isn't easy. It's not, it's hard work. But we get up in the morning and we have something to go do
Hmm.
that gives us purpose and makes us feel like we're helping. And so I say that all the time, and I get people that'll just shoot me a quick little email, and the end of it will be, and I get to do this. And I think just that mentality, that shift sometimes. We also went through probably the hardest professional experience that I've ever gone through. We lost one of our team members suddenly, and he was salt of the earth, and he used to say, no matter what you needed and no matter who you were, his response was, "I got you, I got
Hmm.
you." So we have T-shirts that say, we got you" on the back, and our new safety vests say, "We got you." And I think it's not just that phrase; it's carrying his spirit and everything that he stood for that we all absolutely loved. So I think it's sometimes doing some of that. It's continuing to do the work that we need to do and knowing that we need to do it, but finding those little kind of almost unspoken words of encouragement to keep us all going and on the same path.
That's great. Flipping around a little bit, but if someone wants to, like, we talked about a pickleball tournament. If someone wants to do, especially this time of year with Thanksgiving coming, to do like a drive, a pantry drive, with their church or with their pickleball group or whatever. What are some guidelines? You mentioned a little bit going to the website and seeing what the needs are, not what's
Mhm.
expired in your pantry. But what are some basic guidelines of making a successful food drive to be able to help your either local community where you're handing it out to neighbors or to the food pantry?
Craig, I'm going to ask you to answer that, but I'm going to give one quick little because we added something this year that I think is was like an aha moment. We've added QR codes to everything we do because there
Hmm.
are people that get to work and they, oh, I forgot again. I was supposed to bring a can or whatever. And it's easier for them to do that QR code and make a cash donation.
That's
And
right.
while we didn't do that for a while because it felt like it was almost a little bit greedy, like, oh, you don't want our, you want us to give cash, that those cash donations enable us to fill in what we don't get through
Yeah.
donations. And I think it's been very successful because we find that it's just the preferred way for some people. Some people want that tangible, that box filled up in their lobby if they still go to work in a lobby, But the world has changed, and making it as easy for them to donate as possible is something that we added. But you want to talk about food
Yeah.
drives?
Yeah, so let me just say that when it comes to our food drives, one of the most important things is coordination with your local food assistance provider first.
Mhm.
They oftentimes have relationships with the grocery stores. We run
Hmm.
grocery rescue for the entire county, so we have a relationship with every single supermarket, food store that there is in the county. And so that makes it easier for you in terms of getting permission because you have to get permission if you're going to be setting up something on the property of the local grocery store or supermarket, and being able to then collect that food and then the coordination of how you're going to get that there. If you're incredibly successful, those boxes become incredibly heavy. And those
Mhm.
bins are things that are placed on pallet jacks. So it really is, and it does require coordination. So that's the first and foremost, coordinate with your local food assistance provider. Second, use your networks. Utilizing your networks is an incredibly powerful thing. And just say, hey, whether it's your Nextdoor app or whether it's your local, Panhellenic organization that you have in your area that you're a part of, your local gardening club, whatever it is, and just send a shout out to folks and say, hey guys, I'm going to be collecting food at X. Don't just expect it to come from strangers, but also reach out to the folks you know and encourage them to come out and support because then they'll tell others. And it truly is that pebble in the pond. It is that ripple effect where before you know it, you've got a whole reunion of folks that you haven't seen in years who are showing
Mhm.
up to drop off food and help out. And I couldn't agree more with what Cathy said. It's interesting. We asked at a recent baseball game that they partnered with us and they asked folks to bring food. And of course, some did, and a lot of
Mhm.
folks forgot. And
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, I left the bag right on the steps." Not a problem. Here's a QR code.
Yeah.
Out of that QR code for this small minor league baseball team, we raised $6,000 in one evening. Now, again, in the grand scheme of things, is that, life changing for the organization? It's not, but guess what? Out of that, we now have a relationship with a hot dog company that was there, that was at the baseball event,
Mm.
that now is partnering with us. We have an organization that's offered pro bono legal services to us as a result of being there. These are things that, again, go beyond just the event itself. I always say that they're not just food raisers, as we call them, but they're friend raisers because it really does create an opportunity for us to expand our friendship with other people, other organizations in the community. Once you do one thing, others will see it and they'll want to be a part of it as well.
So it sounds like one good question to ask when you're at a store or at a restaurant is, who do you partner with in the community? Making the assumption they are, but also,
Mm.
maybe being that introduction. Because there's a lot of great companies out there, a lot of stores that want to be investing in their community. And so maybe we can be that person who connects the dots for them.
Yeah. And also those relationships, making sure that if there's food rescue to be had, they know
Yes.
who that part too. Please don't throw away anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought about going into that. I think maybe um, definitely talk to local food bank first and see what they're doing, and
Yeah.
then start making a plan to fill in the gaps, because that I know that there's businesses that are already doing that, and they have it set up so we don't, but there's others that aren't. So
Yeah.
coordinating and then going with that. So yeah, throwing food away is just rough to see. So anything else? I want to be honoring of your time, but anything else that you would like to share with the people listening here?
There's always hope. The
Yes.
day we wake up without hope is the day I don't get out of bed. So keep doing this together, and we'll get through it. I've started to talk about life as a rear view mirror,
Mm,
and to think back on all the different things that we've made it through that we wondered if we could. I feel like this is going to be one of those moments, and I look forward to the time that I can say, remember when we were going through that back in 2025? Because we'll get through it. We're resilient.
yes. That's beautiful. Um, we will do it. And I like the word we too.
Hmm.
Like, as individuals, we have a choice. And as a community, we can choose to grab that hope. And if you look at history, you see that beautiful resilience, that even sometimes the lean times even makes that resilience stronger and more valuable,
Yeah.
more treasured. So
I'll just close with saying that, look, Manna has its roots in religion. But you don't have to be religious to know that it's not right for people to suffer.
yeah,
And it's very clear that when a child sees another child crying, that child goes over and tries to offer them compassion and empathy, right? And so we know that that's innate in who we are. And so embracing that same childlike tendency that we have to know to put our differences aside. We may look different, we may come from different backgrounds, but at the end of the day, we know that no one should experience hunger. We all agree that. And so if we are all in agreement, then we can find a way. And I love what you said, Marla and Kathy. We can find a way to make this happen. We can solve hunger. We truly can. Again, I'm not talking about eliminating to where it's zero and nobody ever goes hungry. That is not realistic. What is realistic is the resources that are there when people find themselves in positions so that we can help assist them to get back on track to become self-sufficient and do it in a timely manner in which they're not experiencing hardship for a long period of time.
yeah,
Doesn't sound like a lot to ask for. It really doesn't. So we should do it.
yeah,
We should commit the resources, and those resources are not just money. We should commit the resources. That's policy, that's laws, that's money, that's time, energy, all of the things that we know to actually make that happen.
Amen.
well said, well said. Kathy, Craig, been a delight. Thank you so much. We will put in the show notes some of those links. I'll try to make sure I get information from you guys,
Okay.
and there'll be clips so we can pass this on. My hope is this is something that we'll keep on giving. So thank
Wonderful.
you so
Thank
much
you
for your
so much.
time.
Thank you,
All right.
Marla. Thank you, Kathy.
Yep. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
All
Take
right.
care.
Bye
Thanks. Bye
bye.
bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We it was a great conversation, and I will leave things in the show notes. If you have any questions, please contact me at Marla at coachingwithmarla.com. And you can find the replay of this at Coaching with Marla on YouTube. It's the WhatWorks episode. And please share it. Share it with people who need hope. And let's do this together. Thank you so much.